How did he come to Lubavitch? So I'll tell you that also. He's from England, Rabbi Stigman. Unfortunately, at a very young age, his father had passed away. I think he was about either around bar mitzvah age. So he had to say Kaddish for his father. He has like 3 sisters. He was an only son. So he would come to Lubavitch house or some Lubavitch or whatever, one of the Lubavitch institutions in England to say Kaddish for the year for his father. He came from a Frum family, but not a Lubavitch family. And that's how he became. And he went to Lubavitch institutions and he went to Bar Chabad. He became a soifer, a shoichet. He went through the whole system and he had many certifications. Amazing human being. Got married very young, got married at age 20 or 21. A great guy. He passed away about 5 years ago. And whenever I face a challenge at work, I hear his voice telling me it's to this, to that. He made such an indelible impression upon me. Anyway, so the Neshama have an aliyah, and you should be inspired by such wonderful human beings. Okay, now let's learn a little bit of halacha so that they don't, I might get into trouble if I tell you so many stories. Halacha Gimel. The Torah says, we're speaking about the prohibition of basar v'chalav. We're not allowed to mix milk and meat together. Just to refresh our memory what we said last week, that milk and meat by themselves are something that we may have had yogurt for breakfast, whatever it is. We have milk all the time, then we have meat at night. So the consumption of milk and meat happens all the time in our lives. The prohibition is we're not allowed to mix them together. So it's the bonding, right? The formation of the mixture of basar v'chalav, that is the prohibition. Okay. This is the Torah says in the way of bishul. The Torah says it's only prohibited in the way of bishul. That if the basar and the chalav were cooked together, what happens if you soak milk and meat together? Even many days after together. Even though certainly there'll be an absorption of milk into the meat, and there's also a taste of the meat into the milk. The klal is kosher and special yachad. As long as they weren't cooked together, there's no isur Torah. Is that clear? In other words, the Torah is saying we're not allowed to cook them together. Pickling them together is not forbidden from the Torah, right? Making a marinade, for example. You're not allowed to do it. We're not allowed to eat it either, but we're speaking about the Torah prohibition. But rabbinically speaking, any type of bonding of milk and meat together, even a cold mixture, right, where they're going to be pickling together, is prohibited rabbinically. Similarly, if you have milk that absorbs the taste of meat. Any situation where you have meat that comes into milk, or some milk spilled on meat, because it's potentially a problem. Just to be clear, again, I said this last week, I want to refresh our memory. Anything that's asar or basar b'chalav from the Torah, we're not allowed to have benefit from. If it's only asar rabbinically, we're not allowed to eat it, we're not allowed to cook it either, but we're allowed to have benefit from it. So for example, if you're going to buy dog food that's going to have chicken or turkey mixed with milk, right? It's a rabbinic prohibition. We're not allowed to do it, and we're not allowed to cook it, but if it was already done, we're allowed to give it to our dog. But if it was meat and milk, we're not allowed to give it to our dog. Halacha Dalid, and then we're going to get into a whole new subject which is related to this, but it's quite interesting. So from the Torah, meaning from the Torah perspective, strictly speaking, midoraisa, only if you take kosher meat and kosher milk and cook them together, are you violating basar b'chalav? But otherwise, it's not from the Torah itself. Midrabanan, rabbinically, also gam basar iftar sarchaya toidim chalav. Rabbinically, you're not allowed to have chicken together with meat from a wild animal with milk. Similarly, milk from a kosher animal with meat, even though they weren't cooked together, but they rather absorb the taste from one another. Rabbinically, we're also not allowed to cook chicken, chaya, wild animal, behema, or an animal that's tmeya with chalav. So rabbinically, we're not allowed to do these things, but again, rabbinically, you're allowed to derive benefit from them. Any questions on what I said so far?
I think I understand the second one. We are not allowed to the chicken and the meat of a wild animal together.
I'm sorry, the chicken or the meat of a wild animal with milk.
Oh, okay.
That's rabbinically prohibited, not from the Torah. Okay, now, yes.
So, yeah, you learned that you can't also follow chicken and right?
Yes.
Or whatever. Like, it's harder to cook like horse and cheese. There, like a yid is allowed to cook that. It's not possible.
So a yid would not violate the prohibition of bas b'chalav because it's already prohibited. The horse meat's already prohibited by itself. However, we're not allowed to do it because of marasayin, because it looks like bas b'chalav.
Right. So not even for your dog.
You're allowed to have benefit from that. So that wouldn't be a problem of bas b'chalav having benefit from. Not cooking it.
Feeding your dog that, it's fine.
Feeding the dog that would be allowed, but there's another thing I wanted to mention, which you're kind of touching on another subject. I want to try to give you an all-inclusive answer. There's another halacha which we're not learning now, but since you asked the question, I have to bring it in. We're not allowed to do mischar. We're not allowed to do business with things that are forbidden from the Torah, which means to say we're not allowed to benefit from bas b'chalav. We're also not allowed to sell non-kosher meat, even though it's not bas b'chalav. Like, for example, horse meat. Let's say there's a sale and it's now half price. I want to buy it and make a lot of money. I'm not allowed to sell it. I'm not allowed to do business with it. When you have a shlachtos, a shchita operation, right? So let's say they shech the animals, let's say 50% of them or 30, 40% of them are glat, and some are not glat, some are not kosher. In that case, the one who's doing the shchita is allowed to sell the non-kosher meat because they're not going into the business for the sake of selling non-kosher meat. They want to sell kosher meat and they have some bycatch. If you know, a bycatch is just an expression, meaning they have some stuff that didn't come out kosher, so they shouldn't have a loss. But on the onset, go out and to actually buy non-kosher and do business with non-kosher, we're not permitted to do. Rabbinic products, let's say non-kosher cheese, for example, we are allowed to sell. So that's why I gave the example with dog food of, let's say, chicken or turkey together with milk. I like that example better because you're allowed to have benefit from it and you're allowed to sell it. You can't eat it. You can't cook it. But when it comes to horse meat, really we shouldn't be in that business, if you know what I'm saying. If someone gave us something like that, a bag for our dog, yes, you can give it to the dog if they gave it to you, potentially if it was given to you, but you shouldn't be involved in it like the chatchila, so to speak, okay? Okay, now, the next halacha, hey, gets into a discussion about harchokes. And I want to preface this by saying the following. The Torah, I'm sorry that I'm drinking my smoothie. I lead a crazy life, very hectic, and that's what I do. But anyway, you'll forgive me, I hope. The Torah says as follows. It says that whenever we have a situation where we have a certain level of comfort and a certain level of familiarity between two things that cannot be brought together, the Torah says we need to have extra levels of protection, extra reminders, if you will. So let me give you an example. I'm going to give you an example in another area of Torah. It's the same school of thought. The Torah says that when it comes to Pesach, we're not even allowed to touch chametz. We're not allowed to own chametz, right? But we're not even, so let's say we go to a store, we're going to a supermarket. We're allowed to go to the supermarket on Pesach. We can buy, let's say, apples or oranges, kosher for Passover things. We're allowed to buy them. But we're not allowed to touch a loaf of bread, even though we're not buying it and we're not eating it. Because we need to have an extra level of sensitivity and protection because it's something that we eat all year round. So we're familiar with this food. We're afraid you might forget, oh, it's Pesach, you might come to Chas v'Shalom, stumble and eat it, yes? And there's other areas of Torah, of halacha, where it's the same kind of school of thought. When you have a sense of closeness, yes, and a sense of familiarity, when there's a time when we can't have that closeness, we have to be a little bit more careful. We have to have more boundaries in place. So the Torah is saying over here the same thing. Basa b'chalav, we have our steak for dinner, and then comes the morning, we had our yogurt and fruits. We fabring with these foods all the time. We just don't eat them together. So the Torah says, oh, You have them all the time. You're familiar with them. So we have to be a little careful. Let's say, for example, I'm sitting in a park bench in Prospect Park, and my best friend comes to town. I'm sitting and eating a steak, the Shemul Tiferes, and my friend comes and is having a bowl of yogurt with fruits, and we're sitting together at the same table, and we're hamish with each other. It means we're friends and we share, right? We're close. So when you're close on that level, there's a sense of some of the boundaries kind of go down, right? Imagine you're sitting at a train station, right? And you're having a drink, and a stranger comes over to you and says, "Can I have some of your drink?" You think they're about to rob you or something. Chas v'shalom. You know what I mean? It'll get you worried. But if it's a friend, they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, try some of my drink. Try some of this." So whenever you have that friendship, we're kind of, our guard is down and we're kind of more relaxed. So the Torah says there we need to have some harchakos, some sense of reminder that, hey, you can be friends, best friends, BFFs, whatever you want to call today's lingo, I don't know. But when we're eating, I'm having meat, you're having dairy, we got to remind ourselves, hey, we're not sharing our food right now. We can talk, we can share ideas, but we're not going to share food. So whenever you have a situation where there's that element of closeness and you're having the opposite kinds of foods together and you're at the same table, we need to have some sort of a recognition, some sort of a reminder. Make sense? Okay. On the other hand, if you're sitting on a table and someone's eating non-kosher food, which you never touch, you don't eat anyways, you don't need that sense of reminder because it's a built-in reminder. Hey, I don't eat this. It's only when I do eat it sometimes, I need that reminder, hey, now I cannot eat it. Halacha hey. Harchakos shebein basa b'chalos. Harchakos are meaning a sense of boundaries between milk and meat. Rabbi said we're not allowed to eat meat and milk together. We're not even allowed to bring meat on a table that we have cheese. In the reverse. So if I'm eating meat now at a table, I'm not allowed to put cheese on the same table unless I put down a placemat. I'm not allowed to put it down straight. I just cannot hold myself back from telling you this little snippet of a story. I was in my kitchen once, and we have these two placemats. We've got dairy ones and meat ones. And our housekeeper, she was making, she doesn't turn on any fires. She's not Jewish. She doesn't turn on any fires. But she was making, I turned on the toaster. She made herself like some kind of grilled cheese kind of food. She took out a placemat. And I said to her, like, in Spanish, it's like, this is, so that's carne, like that's the meat placemat. And I got confused. She says, no, this is leche. She showed me. I made a mistake on the color. I said, it's a good sign that she's correcting me. I thought that the placemat color she took out was meat. It was really dairy. But anyway, she corrected me. So I said, okay, that's a good sign. So we need placemats. If you know each other, you cannot eat at the same table unless you have some sort of a placemat or a recognizable thing that shows that we're eating different kinds of foods. We're afraid you might come to sample some of your friends' food. Oh, I'm going to try some of these chicken fingers. Oh, I'm going to try some of this grilled cheese, whatever it is, and we might come to make a mistake. However, now we're in the middle of Halacha Hey, page Yud Zayin. If you don't know each other, you're sitting at a train station. You don't know each other. It's a stranger. Could be another religious girl. Doesn't matter. But you don't know each other. We're not afraid that, oh, you might come to start eating each other's food. No. That's not how it works with the social norms. First, you say hello to somebody, get to know them, and then you say, can I have some of your food? If you say, can I have some of your food before that, there's already going to create some other issues, which we're not dealing with right now. I'm not worried about that. Even if friends can eat on one table, it must is a simon. If you made some sort of a simon and a hecker between yourselves, it's fine. Everyone's eating on their own placemat. Different colors, different patterns, that's fine. Okay, so I've got let's say a red placemat for meat, and you have a blue placemat for dairy. That's the patterns we've chosen, that's fine. Yes?
Do you have the same placemats? You just like turn over?
Technically, yes, but if you have hot stuff on the placemat, no. Because it's going to absorb, it's going to take on the status of it. If it's just for cold, for recognizable purposes, it would work, but it's not practically, right?
And so therefore your table should be apart, and then you should have placemats for.
No, you could also have a tablecloth that's flay shades, and whatever you're going to bring milk, you put down a placemat. You can have one status tablecloth, and then if you want to do the opposite status, you put down a placemat. And that's how I do it in my house. My big table outside, the dining room is a fleishig tablecloth.
Okay, sorry. Can you explain again, like, what is the difference if you know one knows the person?
Sure. So let me explain. You know what? I'm going to explain it, but I first want to finish the halacha, then I'll explain. In other words, the idea of a placemat is you're putting something down that you ordinarily wouldn't put there. You put something something that's not normally by the table. A siman in halacha, a heker has to be something that's like an inch high. So, for example, this, if I put it like this, it's an inch high. It's not something that's normally on the table. That serves as a heker. Now, if let's say, for example, it's going to be a napkin hold that's always on the table anyways, it's not a heker because I'm not doing something unusual. It's only when you do something unusual, right? And today people bring their phones, unfortunately, they're glued to their phones, putting your phone like in a diagonal way, or straight up may also not be a good hacker because it's on the table so much. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Requires a little thought. But certainly erasers don't belong on the table, whatever it is. So that's fine. But like this wouldn't really be an inch high. So you want to have it standing tall. Okay, let's finish and then I'll take that question. If you have a hacker between yourselves, you're going to remember, I'm not going to share food now. I'm having meat, you're having dairy, and we're going to just keep to ourselves. Also be careful not to drink from the same cup because you're going to have some remnants, right? And also not to eat from the same bread. If you have bread that's already by the person's plate, it probably has some of the status of whatever you're eating. If the bread's on the actual, listen, this is a very interesting halacha. At the Shabbos table, we have a challah board. Yes, the challah coming to the table is parv. Assuming it's parv, it should be parv. You're not allowed to make it fleishig the milk, but let's say it wasn't baked in a fleishig oven. Let's say it was baked in a parv oven. As long as it's on the challah board, it's like an island for itself. It's an oasis. It's parv. And I cut it and I give out pieces. Once it comes to your plate, you have to assume it's going to be fleishigs by the Shabbos meal because there's all kinds of fleishig foods that are hanging around there. But if it's by the actual challah board, it remains parv. Even if you're having chicken, which rabbinically is asur mitzvah basar b'chalav, right? Because when the Torah only meat itself, still the stringency of having this boundary between someone eating milk and meat also applies to chicken, which, by the way, is a chiddush. It's something that rationally I wouldn't necessarily think of because I'll say what it's only rabbinic. I'm only worried about rabbinically mixing it. Mixing it from the Torah is allowed. No. Also, we have to have that level of boundary by chicken itself. Even though the prohibition is only rabbinic in nature. Okay, now we have a question. Sorry, your first name again? Svara? Yeah, Svara asked me a question. She wants to know, to explain again this idea of the difference between if you have friends. When you have a friend, even if it's not your best friend, by nature, you will share things. A friend means to share. You might share ideas. You might share something that's on your heart. Whatever, you're going to share things. So there's a likelihood, an accentuated possibility, you're going to share some of your food, right? Try this. Try that. Oh, this is really delicious. So therefore, if you have a friendship and you're having opposite kinds of foods, you have to put down a hecker to remind ourselves, okay, you're having flesh, I'm having milk, we're not sharing food today. We're friends, but we're not sharing food. If you're not friends, we're not worried about you sharing food, because if you do, then there might be some other concerns, like, well, what's going on here? Why are they asking me for food? They don't even know them, So we're not worried about that happening. It's not an unusual type of situation. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
If you have time, we can discuss after. But like, it's my father does a lot of business. He spoke to me once about just going back to before how like he knows a lot of forbidden that own a lot of Popeyes chains. You know Popeyes?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, what's the deal with that? Like a lot of like it's obviously allowed because they're forbidden.
I don't know the details of how they do it, but they probably do it in such a way where they have a non-Jewish partner and the Jewish people own the buildings and the machinery, but not the actual food.
Right, yeah, it's real estate.
Then it's okay. You're allowed to own the real estate. You're not allowed to own the meat itself or the non-kosher food itself. You're allowed to own a building that's McDonald's. Now, you can't advertise that's Jewish owned because it shouldn't sound like it's a kosher place, but you own the real estate.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I'm eating by myself, do I need to put a mat after eating karabi or basari?
So if you're eating at a table that has a tablecloth, depending on what the tablecloth status is, if it's a plastic, throwaway plastic.
No, I think plastic.
So if it's a plastic, what's the plastic tablecloth? Is it fleischiks or milchiks? Depends what it is. And then whatever status that is, if you're eating that status, then you don't have to have anything. But if you're using the opposite status, so if it's a milchik plastic, then you don't have to put anything down when you have milchiks. If it's not milchiks, let's say it's going to be fleischiks, you have to put down a placemat. Then yes.
If you were talking like tablecloths and once you like put them in the laundry and they come out clean, they start fresh.
Yes, but again, you've designated colors. You don't have to worry. You can wash them together. It's not a problem.
Right.
But you designated colors, so that there's a sense of law and order, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
But even if when they like, no matter what, when they come out of the
because you're using soap and all kinds of detergent, it's no problem.
Also, I have another question here. Talking about the bread, like how you cut it. So you should be careful to only ever cut bread on a carved surface of parve.
Well, first of all, it's proper to cut bread with a parve knife. Yes, because bread could go either for meat or dairy dishes. So it's proper to cut it with a parve and on a parve surface. That's the proper thing to do. If you're using a fleishig knife, then yes, you have to be mindful of that. I mean, if it's clean, there's maybe a bit of it wouldn't be an issue, but talking about the chatchila, how we should conduct ourselves. Okay. All right. I'm sorry?
You should burn.
For brain, huh?
Yeah.
I think it should. Yeah, I have a story to say, but okay, one more halacha. Halacha vav. Now, so the previous halacha we spoke about the idea of having healthy boundaries. Yes, when we have meat or milk, healthy boundaries. Now, halacha vav is talking about there's also a time waiting period between milk and meat and milk, different respectively. And the reason for that is because there's a certain shir ikul, which means there's a certain amount of time it takes to digest the food. So with regards to milchiks, the time waiting period after milchiks till we can have meat is less than in the reverse. We as Chassidim are noyeg like the Shalah HaKadosh, Kabbalah, to wait 1 hour. Some Yidden, from a Yidden, they wait less than that. They wait a half an hour, or they only wait a little bit. They just rinse their mouth. They don't even wait that much. And when it comes to eating meat, after meat, before we have dairy, our minhag is to wait 6 hours. There are some Yidden, like the Dutch Jews and the German Jews, they wait only 3 hours or 1 hour. But it's not a commonly held minhag. So if there's no minhag, we go to the 6 hour custom. There are some Jews that wait into the 6 hour, 5.5 hours, which brings me to the following story. The Rebbe said in a Sikha, the following, an oistruk means an expression. A Hasidic expression is like loaded. It's like a one-liner. It's like a loaded Hasidic bomb in a good way. It's full of juice, full of energy. The Rebbe said a Hasidic Yid is somebody who waits the full 6 hours after meat before having dairy. So there was a Rav who was writing a halachic responsa. He's quoting all the sources in the Gemara and Shulchan Aruch. Why you don't have to wait a full 6 hours. There are different opinions brought down in the Gemara. Our custom is to wait the full 6 hours. But he's writing, so he had he was fleischiks, right? And it was 5.5 hours. It was like getting into the 6th hour, but right now it's only 5.5 hours. And he held that 5.5 hours is enough. And he had basis for this. It wasn't like he made it up. There were opinions that support this, even though we don't follow these opinions. And he had coffee and he had milk inside, and he was going to have a milk, dairy coffee. He's writing the responsa, and as he's writing the response, once he finishes by mistake with a stroke of the pen, he knocks over his coffee and it spills all over his paper. And he said, it's a sign min hashamayim that I should not be writing this response. I shouldn't be writing it. It takes a Chassidish Rav to even to see the connection. See what I'm saying? It was a clear sign. He says, I'm not writing this. It's a Geschmack story. Anyway, now I'm saying that there's different opinions about it. So if you have a case of where someone's in a case of need, let's say, for example, a woman is pregnant and she needs to have the calcium with the milk, and she needs to also have, I don't know, the protein from the chicken, whatever. And for her to wait 6 hours is very difficult because she has to have the nutrition. Obviously, assuming other options don't work in terms of from a dietary perspective, it could be she could be lenient in that situation, only wait 3 hours. Yes, but it should be discussed with a Rav. Ordinarily, we wait to 6 hours. That's it. Okay, now. Story was going to say, I forgot. It'll come back to me. Achilas, eating dairy after meat. We're now on page Yud. Not only this, we're not allowed to have meat together with milk. We're not allowed to have dairy after we eat meat. It says in the Gemara, you eat meat, you're not allowed to have cheese. The Gemara explains, when Marukva would have meat in this meal, he didn't have dairy till another meal, meaning another meal time. The Gemara, one opinion says another meal. Other opinion says no. In those days, they used to have 6-hour intervals between meals. So when the Gemara says another meal, it means another time period of a meal, which is 6 hours. In a Nechlakor, the Rishonim have a difference of opinion, which is what I just said. I'm saying inside Befish, and also the reason why we wait. Okay, so some opinions say that Suda Cheres refers to just a time period, and others say that it actually just means a different meal. So according to the lenient opinion, it says it means it's just a different meal. You could technically just bench, right, and then go to the next kind of food. But we don't actually practice that. We don't do that. Now I'm going to tell you another story. It's already 4 minutes before the end of class. Mistape Halacha Zayin. The bringing is good. It's almost Chodesh Tishrei. I'll tell you a nice about Chodesh Tishrei. The Halakha Barditchev. Yes, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev was a tzaddik in the times of the Alter Rebbe. He was a mechut in the Alter Rebbe. Their grandchildren married each other. He saw with Ruach HaKodesh that his time in this physical world was coming to an end, the Chodesh Elul. So he said to the Eibesh, Rebbeinu Shem Leilam, I want to have another Yemei Asliches, I want to have another Rosh Hashanah, give me another Rosh Hashanah, another Ases Yemei Tshuva, another Yom Kippurim, another Sukkos, another Chol HaMoed, another Hoshana Rabbah, another Shmini Atzeres, another Simchas Torah, another Yisro Chag, one more Tishrei. And the Rebbeinu, of course, answered the tefillos of tzaddikim, and he passed away Chaf Hei Tishrei, right after Yom Tov, day after Yisro Chag. And then there's another tzaddik who passed away on Chaf Dalet Tishrei. The Halakha, the Ribnitzer Rebbe. The Ribnitzer Rebbe was a Yid. His name was Rabbi Rabinowitz. He was a contemporary of the Rebbe. And I have to share some stories with you about him. I saw him myself. He was a Baal Ruach HaKodesh. He looked at a person, he saw right through them. He came to be Menachem Ovel the Rebbe in Tav Shemem Ches when the Rebbe was sitting Shiva for the Rebbetzin. I was a Bach, I was 19 years old at the time. And I saw him come to the Rebbe's house, and he was walking like this. He had piercing eyes. He was a tall man. He lived till like age 93 or 94. And the Bachram wanted to shake hands with him to give shalom to such a tzaddik. He would look right through, he could see on the Bachar's face if he went to mikveh that day. And he would only shake hands if the Bachar went to mikveh. So he'd go like this. He would shake hands only with people he saw right through them. I saw it with my own eyes. So Mordechai ben David, the singer, I was once on a plane with him, and Mordechai ben David was his gabbai. He was shamish. There was a time when Mordechai ben David was sort of drifting a little bit. I know he was having he needed so Rabbi Rabinowitz took him on as his gabbai, and he was mekarev him to Yiddishkeit. I mean, he was religious, but he brought him back a little bit closer to Yiddishkeit. So Mordechai ben David says to me one time, the Rebbe says to me, "Kum lamazin the chayes." They lived in Seagate, New York at the time. So he drove them to Great Adventure to see the wild animals. In the 80s, the lions and tigers were running loose. Today, they're in cages. They don't let you for safety. So it's a known thing. Al pi Kabbalah, al pi Chassidus, at Tzaddik, they see an animal, like they see a lion, they see that in the celestial heights what the lion represents. So he told the Mordechai Ben David to stop the car. The Rebbe is sitting in the back seat he had a Lincoln Continental, Mordechai Ben David, I remember the car. And he opened the window, and the lion was sitting like 10 feet away. He opened the window, and the Rebbe is staring at the lion. And the lion's not doing anything, because the known thing that even a dangerous animal, when they see the face of a tzaddik, that they become docile, that they're scared. They see it because they see the tzaddik maliki, they see the godliness. Someone Rabbi David says to me, the ranger came running. How could you do this? Get open the window. Nothing happened. And then he told me another story. He says, and the Rebbe was, there's many stories. He said a story that was doing a chassan. There was a chassan in Eretz Yisrael, in Tel Aviv. And he was by the chasana, and the drummer wanted to shake hands with the Ribnitzer, but he hadn't gone to mikveh. So he just stuck out his hand. The Ribnitzer didn't shake his hand. So by the chuppah, there was time, because the drummer wasn't drumming by the chuppah. So he ran it was near the beach, he ran to the ocean, he toiveled in the ocean, and he came back and he didn't tell anybody. And he gave the Ribnitzer his hand, and then the Ribnitzer shook his hand. He said, Ruach HaKodesh, mamish. And so I heard another story about the Rebbe this past Shabbos, and in Tafshin Lamed Ches, Simchas Torah, when the Rebbe had the heart attack, the Rebbe was in Los Angeles at the time, okay, and it was Yontif, they couldn't speak on the phone, and the Rebbe's hakafah started late. They wouldn't start it like right after Maidav. So because there's a 3-hour time difference in Los Angeles, it's 3 hours earlier. They were doing hakafas around the same time. Rebbe's hakafas were, let's say, around 12 or whatever. And Los Angeles, they were having hakafas. And Tafshin Lamed Ches, in Los Angeles, 3,000 plus miles away, the Ribnitzer, in the middle of hakafas, stopped hakafas, went to a private room and said to him for 3 hours to the Rebbe. He saw Baruch Pesh that the Rebbe's having a heart attack. Tzaddikim there's supposed to be Yagan Aleinu. I'll tell you one more story I heard. The Ribnitzer, he had a very long life. And he outlived 2 of his wives. So he didn't have any children of his own, but his second wife, or maybe even his third wife, she had a few children of her own. So he had a few stepchildren. So his second or third wife, I don't remember. It was towards the end of his life. She was by the Rebbe for dollars. And the Rebbe said to her, Zaga dank thy mom, thank your husband for helping out this particular Jew. There was a certain Jew who needed a bracha. And the Rebbe saw Baruch HaKodesh that the Rebbe was helping him. They were speaking in the celestial spheres, in the spiritual world. Anyway, have a wonderful Shabbos, and we'll continue Mitzvah Shem. I got to do attendance. Oh boy. Okay, I'll do that yet.